become a community organizer. In fact, we are right now near the end of another warm interglacial. And those of us who are educated in science know that we're actually heading into another glacial cooling period where global temperatures will drop and ice will again form heavily at the poles. It's already happening. The Antarctic has just had the greatest growth of ice in a very long period of time. This information can be found on pages 239 to 241 of Government Zero. Now, I didn't make it up. I'm quoting statistics and facts. And when you quote Goddard and you quote the UN climate research organizations, every one of them have been uncovered to have fudged the data, made it up and changed it. I don't have the time nor the inclination to go into this any further. If you want to study it, you'll find out that Obama is the greatest salesman in the history of the world to have been able to, A, get elected twice, B, push these lies down the throats of so many people while ISIS is raging. Back in a minute.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Hey, our Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust for wealth insurance, gold and silver. Call 800-BUYCOI. Well, there is justice in the world. This story just came in out of New York City, New York State, really. Sheldon Silver found guilty on all counts in corruption trial. You don't know how big this story is. This just shows you that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. This guy was above the law. This guy thought he could get away with anything he wanted. He was, by all measures, one of the most corrupt, vile politicians in the history of New York State. He was former State Assembly Speaker, Sheldon Silver. He was just convicted on all 7 criminal counts in a corruption scheme that traded taxpayer cash and political favors for $4 million in payoffs. A Manhattan federal jury deliberated fewer than 3 days before finding the veteran lawmaker guilty of 7 charges of honest services fraud, extortion, and money laundering. Silver, age 71, faces a maximum 130 years in prison for the long-running scam. Now, let me tell you something. This is a huge victory for the anti-corruption crusading Manhattan U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara, but it's a huge victory for Americans everywhere. You don't have to be in New York to understand the adage, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Silver was the epitome of corrupt politician. He meant the word corrupt politician. I would live for the day that I see this happen in California, my home state. I'd give anything to see some of these arrogant crooks that have stolen from the state treasury, that have traded laws for payoffs. I love to see them marched off in their Brioni suits and their smirks. But we don't have a U.S. attorney out here like Preet Bharara. He's part and parcel of the one world government that we all fear. Today, Sheldon Silver got justice, and at long last, so did the people of New York, said U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara in a statement. According to the New York Post article, jurors had appeared to be in disarray several times during deliberations, with one juror demanding to be taken off the panel because she said other members were hassling her over her views, and another claiming a newly discovered conflict of interest. But the judge ordered them to continue deliberating, and the verdict was rendered just moments ago in Manhattan. This decision cemented a stunning fall from grace that began when the Manhattan Democrat was busted in January following more than 3 decades as one of the New York State's most powerful politicians. His arrest forced Sheldon Silver to resign his leadership post, but he held on to his longtime assembly seat. There's a lot more to this story that I can't tell you on the radio right now, but over the next few days, I will. All you got to know is this is making people higher than Sheldon Silver in New York State and around the country very, very nervous tonight. They're going to be popping not their champagne, but their Prozac and their tranquilizers. Because if they can get Sheldon Silver as wired into the system and as owning of the judges as he was, it means that no corrupt politician anywhere in this country is safe any longer. Well, at least it means so in New York State, where this incredible U.S. attorney resides. It's a shame he can't come out to California and dig into a little bit of the favoritism, the steering of contracts, and the overt corruption in California. the most corrupt state in the union. This is Michael Savage. Phone number here is 855-400-7282. I know you don't want to talk about this right now because no one knows who Sheldon Silver is, and you figure you don't know what to say about that, but let me tell you, there's a lot to this story. Let's take some calls on the climate change business. WFTL, Bruce, fire away. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi there. I just would like to get your opinion on what's going on with this climate change summit. They have actually said that they're not allowing any protests against it. And I'm surprised that they're doing that because that seems to call attention to it. But it's also a good sign because they may sense that a lot of people are not buying it and they would be against it, and it would be kind of embarrassing. So
the fact of the matter is it's a complete and total sham. And the fact that they're blocking any protests, as you just said, indicates that they don't want anyone to even question their fraudulent statements. It's that simple. That's all. Read all about it in Government Zero. I have a whole chapter on the climate scam and who benefits from it. See, I wish you good-meaning liberals, everybody wants a clean environment. Everybody wants clean air, clean water. I do. I've worked for it my whole life, incidentally. But you don't do it by divide and conquering the people with lies unless you're Barry from Honolulu.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of unprotected talk, borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Now, the big news of the day is not only the fraud in Paris saying that climate is a greater threat to our survival than ISIS, which is ludicrous on the face of it. Insane, actually. Mentally disturbing to listen to this rubbish. But the good news is that this powerhouse from New York State, Sheldon Silver, got his deserves today. He got found guilty on all counts, and he's going to jail. Now, you got to know who he is. You don't have to know much about him to follow what I'm about to say to you. This story of this conviction, which just occurred in the last hour, is going to send a shockwave through the nation itself. Every corrupt state and federal politician should be on the lookout because they're going to be taken down like Silver as sure as I'm sitting here. Well, I'm not as sure of it. I'd like to see it. Let's put it to you that way. It's wishful thinking. So who is Sheldon Silver? Well, there was an article written by Kyle Smith in the New York Post last week that goes like this. He wrote, Sheldon Silver is the political equivalent of a squeegee man. And he explains what kind of graft he took and how he lined his pockets and lied about it. And here it is. They said his services were corrupted by his greed and lies, by bribery, kickbacks, and extortion. He was found guilty on charges of honest services fraud and extortion because they proved quid pro quo, that Sheldon Silver pulled strings in return for money. I'm going to sneeze a little bit. God, I must be allergic to the electrons in the microphone. Something. It could be the mic muff itself. I don't know. Did I blow your ears out with that sneeze? Sorry about that. It's very embarrassing. I usually am a very healthy man, but man, I really got one this time. In fact, the cold is so bad that I missed a trip to Lake Tahoe with my family to see my granddaughter, which was not a pleasant experience for me. But here I am. So who is this, and what does it have to do with you if you live in Colorado? Well, here's a guy, Sheldon Silver, who sat on the top of the heap, and he was pulling in graft. He was as corrupt as they come. And what happens? I'll give you an example. $500,000 in taxpayer-funded grants that Silver did for Robert Taub, whom he barely knew. He never shared a meal with, and to whom he never even gave his cell phone number. And what he got in exchange was this. This Dr. Taub sent Silver asbestos victims who are worth more than $3 million in referral fees via his personal injury law firm. So Sheldon Silver like many powerful state assemblymen, like many former state assembly speakers, retain their law practices while they're plying their public trade. And they use both to enrich themselves. Only in this case, there was an honest U.S. attorney who brought him down. So this guy, Silver, owned a law firm, and he sued on behalf of asbestos victims. You know that that's a fraudulent area in many cases to begin with. And he made a fortune by doing it. And he gave $500,000 in taxpayer-funded grants to the doctor who was steering clients, right? The defendant got one hell of a quid from the asbestos scheme. The defendant gave Dr. Taub all kinds of quo, said Mr. Goldstein, a U.S. attorney who worked on this case, in a brutally damning 3-hour summation. If Silver sent the grant aid and gave these benefits, even in part for the money, the $3 million, that is illegal. In a separate slippery scheme, Kyle writes, Goldstein noted how Silver had managed to pocket some $700,000 by asking a Manhattan real estate firm to send some business to his longtime buddy Jay Goldberg for legal work. Goldberg, in turn, kicked back 25% of his fee to Silver. Are you listening to this? The speaker repaid Glenwood Management, Goldstein explained, by pushing through its state tax break. He hit people up using his official power. He lied, and he lied again and again to keep anyone from learning the truth, said Goldstein, the attorney. Think about what is going on here, he said. The Speaker of the Assembly is meeting with lobbyists, bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars, setting up a whole process with letters that keep the whole thing secret so he can keep getting paid. This is a crime. Goldstein also argued that Silver was defending himself with the preposterous claim that his schemes were just politics as usual in Albany. But Goldstein, in his summary argument, said this was bribery, this was extortion, this was corruption, the real deal. Don't let it stand, he urged the jury. Well, I'm not going to read all of this article. You can read it for yourself. The fact of the matter is Silver got what he deserved, in my opinion, and Sheldon, the gentleman who wrote this article in the Post a week ago, Kyle Smith, who's a great writer, concluded like this. He said, unfortunately for them, Silver comes across as the political equivalent of the squeegee man who dumps filth all over your windshield and then demands to be paid for it. My only prayer my only prayer for California is that we had a U.S. attorney like Preet Bharara out here in the San Francisco area. This is the most corrupt city and the most corrupt state in the land by the estimation of anyone who's ever studied the situation. It's a nightmare to live out here. Now, I mean, I love living out here, but I don't like living in a one-party dictatorship at all. Well, that's the Sheldon Silver story. There's another aspect to the story that makes it not personal for me, but emotional for me. Sheldon Silver was a religious Jewish man, allegedly. It's very hard for me to tell you what this does to me. This man used his religion as a weapon, as unfortunately is true in the case of so many people who wear their religion on their sleeves. And it's not limited to any religion. Many people who make a big show of their religion, whether they be Christians, Jewish, Muslims, Hindu, Zoroastrian, whenever you see them showing their religion in public in a very overt way, all I can say is look behind the surface, because the truly religious don't have to show you that they're religious. This is the Savage Nation. The phone number is 855-400-7282. Marty on WABC. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. I'm just curious as to, he got found guilty here today, but I just don't know. Joe Bruno got guilty or found guilty here not long ago himself, and he got off on appeal. I'm just wondering if the same thing is going to happen with Sheldon.
I understand. I could be celebrating a little too soon for justice and peace. You know that these people have unlimited money. You know, at the next level, they'll probably buy the jury right out of The Godfather.
The whole thing last time, it was the wording in the law that got Joe Bruno out of it. And I'm just wondering if it's going to be the same here. And then we're just...
I know, Marty, I understand. The system, the legal system, is something that none of us have much faith in anymore. I do, because I've spent a lot of time and money in the legal system fighting for my rights. And although it cost me a lot of time and money, it's proven to be okay for me. And they were liberal judges. They did the right thing. So I don't know. Maybe the right thing will happen here. Silver will go away for a very long time in jail. He certainly deserves it. Let me put it to you this way. If a black or Hispanic kid in New York City, or anywhere for that matter, got caught robbing a television set, they'd put him away for 3 to 5. Is that right?
You're absolutely right.
Okay? He is Sheldon Silver.